Thank you.
I will request all the august audience to now leave this hall. If a very important panel, a 45-minute panel is going to happen along with TiE Ahmedabad. So we are going to have a panel on startups and their challenges and opportunities, and a very eminent panel is there, and we will conclude the whole event with that panel. So requesting you all to please stay on, and we will invite the TiE panel to join on the stage. So I will request Alok from TiE to kindly come over the stage and take over the panel. We'll start the E-India startup track, which is a collaborative session with TiE Ahmedabad, and we have the Kaushal Mehta, who is the founder and CEO of Motif Intelligent Outsourcing, who is the president of TiE Ahmedabad, right? Who is with us, and we also have Alok, who is the executive director of TiE Ahmedabad, with us, and you want a speaker, right? So I will just hand over. Also, sir, invite if without taking a make a request to sir Ravi Sakrana sir to also join on the stage. Sir, sir, audience increase हो रहा है sir, Appa ji. Your okay, fine, sir. Your okay. So I will hand over the session to Kaushal, who will introduce all the speakers, and also will take the discussions forward. Yeah, just audio on the stage, please. Check it out. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kaushal Mehta. I run an international outsourcing company called Motif, and we have centers in India, Philippines, and Costa Rica, doing all channel, email, voice, and chat customer support for Fortune 500 companies. And we've been in business for about 12 years. It's a pleasure to chair this panel. What we thought is, and I have distinguished entrepreneurs who have built their companies and gone through what we call the entrepreneurial journey. So to my right is Chirag Mehta, who was the founder of IceNet, Chirag Patel, Net4Nuts, and Chetan Parekh of Mediscribe. What I was proposing is that we have opening remarks from each of the three entrepreneurs for a few minutes, and then I will start off with some questions, and then we can open it up to the audience. So can I request Chirag Mehta to start, please?
Good evening, everybody. Saxena sir and all the guests. My name is Chirag Mehta. I founded a company called IceNet, which was the largest ISP in the state, and we sold that company before a few years, and now I'm focusing on a new venture called IceCube, where we are doing engineering design services outsourced, the hardcore engineering design services for global companies in India. Entrepreneurship is a subject which is very close to my heart. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and my family is also into engineering business. So entrepreneurship is something which I have in my blood, and I initiated in my family this new trend of techno-entrepreneurship and founded IceNet. Now, techno-entrepreneurship is a little different than the regular entrepreneurship. Techno-entrepreneurship has some knowledge angle to the whole entrepreneurship domain. And one is called the regular entrepreneurship, where you set up factories and chemical plants and that. And techno-entrepreneurship, you have some knowledge-based industry or knowledge-based economy, which is imbibed in this entrepreneurial venture. So these ventures are little different than the regular entrepreneurial ventures, and I always call this, this field is pretty exciting, and the new knowledge economy which is coming up in India, where 1 billion people which were always seen as a burden are now seen as an asset. And these 1 billion people who speak and understand English is considered to be a big force to the world. In my new venture where I am doing engineering design, the engineers which we produce, around 600,000, 6 lakh engineers we produce every year, and that number is going up 30% every year. And in US, whole of US produces only 70,000 engineers every year. Whole of Europe, including UK, produces 1 lakh, 100,000 engineers every year. And there is a severe shortage of engineering talent in the world. And India can address this engineering talent. And a lot of engineering work is going to come to India, and that's the purpose I focused on my new venture, IceCube, which is focusing on engineering design services sector. Speaking of entrepreneurship as a subject, 2 or 3 important topics which I would like to draw your attention to. One and the most important topic is everybody is asking that we have an idea, we want to start a venture, but nobody is funding our venture. So that is a common complaint. And if your venture is good, if your idea is worth launching, then you will be able to convince a person with money to invest into your venture. And if you are not able to convince a person with money, then maybe you have to rethink about your idea and reshape your business model or do something else. So one is money is never a criteria if you have a good idea and a good team. So money always follows, money comes in place, and everything then follows in the venture. So that is the first thing which I want to draw your attention to. The second thing which I want to draw your attention is in this technology entrepreneurship ventures, a lot of people think of an idea and then launch the product without testing it to the test customers. I suggest that you give your product free to 5 customers, and if they are able to use it, or if they are willing to use it, then your product is worth launching in the market. Because some products are such that people are not willing to use it for free also. So without having test customers, you should not launch your product, you should not launch your venture. So that is the second point which I want to draw attention to. And the third very important point is that do not go on the internet inflated business models like eyeballs and clicks and things like that. You always have to be very close to the regular business practices, profit, money, return on investment. Even if it's a technology venture, should not be away from the regular business venture and regular business things. So these things, I would say a budding entrepreneur should take care.
Thanks, Chirag. I also want to introduce Chirag as the past president of TiE Ahmedabad, and I'm the current president. TiE is the Indus Entrepreneur, and this is a worldwide body. It's a global, world's largest non-profit for promoting entrepreneurship. And this was started by people of Indian origin in California who successfully started companies, sold them to Cisco and Cabletron and made a lot of money. And then they said, look, how do we give back to the community of what we have learned? So this initiative was when they said, look, if you have an idea and you are a budding entrepreneur, we would like to help with our contacts, with mentoring, with education, or even with some kind of funding. So that is TiE, global 53 chapters. Ahmedabad also has a chapter, and this one body connects you to the entire entrepreneurs of the world. You are online. If there is a company in California that you want to talk to, sitting here in Ahmedabad, Alok can connect you to an entrepreneur in California and say, hey, look, this is my business. What is your business? I have some questions. So I encourage all of you to look at TIE. It's minimal. There is no membership as such for students, but very minimal. But I think this is a great body to foster entrepreneurship. And there are initiatives like the Angel Network, which there are high net worth individuals which want to fund ideas. When Chirag mentioned you have to get money, and people say, yeah, it's so easy to say that, but I can second him to say that there is so much money available at the VC's disposal. And I talk to VCs, they say, look, can you give us ideas where we can invest? So it is a reverse situation for VCs to find a prominent team that they can trust and they can invest money in. So I would just like to then move on, but I definitely want to say the word trust here in entrepreneurship, and that is about values, the way you conduct yourself. Right from college, school, going on to your first job, second job, people are not going to check your references on your resume. They are going to do network background checks from their contacts in the industry. And they have to develop that trust. Oh, this person I can trust. I can put my money in this person because he will not do anything wrong. So very critical that you live your venture with the value system that people can look up to. And to me, investors invest not because of a business plan, but because of the entrepreneur, and if they get comfort in that individual. So that was just a little on that. Now Chirag Patel, Neponuts. Chirag, you can talk a little bit about yourself and your thoughts on opening remarks, please.
Number 3. Yeah, hello. Good evening, everybody. Chirag Patel. I run a company called Net4Nuts. Started this company right here in Gujarat. It was an internet venture when we started in about 2000-2001. And currently we are one of the few mobile value-added service providers that sitting in Gujarat service practically most of the largest operators here in India as well as some of the operators abroad. So in terms of entrepreneurship, I think both Chirag and Kaushal have done a pretty good job in terms of summarizing some of the salient points of what entrepreneurship is all about. I'd just like to share a couple of things or probably just add on to what they have said. One of the key things which I'll reiterate is most of the times you go to VC or even apart from the VC, just about your business venture, it's more about the people, it's more about the execution than the idea itself. Because in my learning of the last few years that I've been running a business, one thing that's constant is change. And that means change of business, change of the core idea with which you start a company, start a business. So I think as an entrepreneur, if you have a good team, you can adapt to this team. You can actually make the most of what the business environment that you operate in throws your way. And to give you a classic example, like I told you, we started our company, doing internet technologies in terms of information aggregation and portals. And from there, today we are a mobile value-added service provider. And the only way we could have survived all this is because our technology sustained it, our team sustained it, and we were able to kind of capitalize on what opportunities came our way. Just to kind of add my 2 cents to the overall entrepreneurship, background, I like to summarize entrepreneurship in, the steps of entrepreneurship in 5 S's. You start a company, which is the first S. You survive, because most of the time entrepreneurship is pretty risky, right? You give up a job, you give up, the cushion that you've been used to, and you take the risk to doing something new or something different. And so, it's very important that your idea gets proven, and which is what Chirag also insisted on in terms of try and sell your product to at least 5 people, not even sell, have them use it. Is the idea sustainable? Do people find value in it, and do they start paying? So I think once you pass the second S, which is the survival S, you come to the third S, which is sustenance. It's very important for a company or a business venture to kind of reach that stage, because until you reach sustenance, you're practically spending money or you're burning money, as it's called. And once you are at the sustenance stage, you at least know you've arrived to an extent that the product works, your company works, your chemistry works, your executions come to a certain area. Next, most important is, and which is where I think the biggest challenges for an entrepreneur is, and which is at the stage that we are at, is scale. Right? You sustained your company, you survived, you started making money, but a business is only as good as its size in terms of where do you stand in terms of market share, where do you stand in terms of your competition, your peers, and once you've achieved scale. Technically, you complete the last step, or rather, you are ready for the last step, which is sell a company. Most entrepreneurs, whether they sell, whether they go exit in terms of an IPO, the last step is pretty important because a venture is only arrived once an entrepreneur is happy with the fact that okay, I have whether you sell your company or not, at least it's at a stage where you maximize or you realize the value in the entire venture that you generate.
Thanks, Chirag. And now Chetan Parikh, the founder and CEO of MediScribes, an international medical transcription company. Chetan, all yours.
Thank you very much, Kaushal. Again, good evening, everybody. I hope you are still awake. Are you awake?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, because again, we at the dais over here have experienced a life. I would not say entrepreneurship is about a passion, about running after an idea, about getting funding for that idea, execution. It's all part and parcel of life. And unlike most of the people on the dais, I am a converted entrepreneur. My family was never into any business. My dad and my mom both worked very humble jobs. My dad used to be a banker. My mom was with Gujarat University. My grandfather was a farmer, and I just got fed up of working for somebody. I work in US for a good-sized company known as General Electric, which obviously was the 5th largest globally. But I came across certain bosses who were just not smart enough, and I didn't like it. I thought, life is about exploring. I cannot be constrained in the rest of my life. So I said, I need to do something else. And the only way out of it was to do something where I would make my own mistakes and I would kick myself and I had nobody to blame. The only boss then I had, other than my customers, would be my wife. I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. So entrepreneurship for me has more been a lifestyle, and I love it. I tell my daughters who are in 9th and 10th grade, I tell my cousins, I tell anybody I meet that you have one life to live. You either live it with intent or it will just become an incident. It's your choice. So all the budding entrepreneurs over here who are either in the race of some sort of promotion, working for somebody, if you have the desire to do something, then do it. You won't get a second chance. Unless you are a cat. Cats have 9 lives. Do I see any cats over here? I don't. So then go out. Live your life to its fullest. Live your dream. Now, again, having said that, the basic question comes in, am I the right person to get into entrepreneurship? Is this the right time? Does the government or people support me? Will I get the funding? I don't have the experience selling. All those can be summed up in one thing, fear of failure. Fear of failure. If we are fearful that we are going to fail, then yes, we'll find 110 reasons that we are not going to make it. But you don't need 110 reasons to fail. You just need one reason to live your life. And failure is a part and parcel of life. A baby, when they start walking, they fall down like what, 1,000,000 times? Do they give up and say, okay, now I'm not going to walk, enough? I'll fail and I'm not going to walk again. Come on, wake up and start walking again. I'll just give a small story that I heard. And a lot of stories come my way and some touches my heart, so I'll share some with you. Somebody told Thomas Edison, because he had tried to make the light bulb 1,000 times and it did not work. So somebody said that, sir, we heard that when you invented the light bulb, you failed 1,000 times. He said, who told you that? No, I never failed. The step to create a light bulb is 1,000 steps long. It's just a process. So don't fear failure. Failure is what will get you to learn. A lot of people, and I can guarantee you, all three people over here are more senior entrepreneurs than me, and they have failed a lot more than I have. But is it failure? Absolutely not. Ask yourself, are you failures? No. You are in this room as a delegate attending this conference, but you all had learning experiences. So for me, when people say, is this, what's the reason you got into this? Because I wanted to change my life. Somebody had a beautiful quote, and I have it in my office, that, what is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like nobody would want to, so that you can live the rest of your life like nobody can afford to. Right? If you get it, then, so work hard, have a passion to do what you want to do, have the desire. Now what is entrepreneur? Entrepreneur in my eyes is nothing more than a problem solver. They find a solution to a problem. We have all learned necessity is the mother of invention. I said, no, necessity is the mother of problem solving. That means problem solver is an entrepreneur. So the mother of an entrepreneur is necessity. Now somebody says, in this falling economy and this crisis, global crisis, is this the right time? Yeah, this is the right time. Because when you have problems, you need solutions. That is when you rise to the occasion and go up and do something about it. So more problems, more opportunities, more ways to find solutions, more ways to have more money in your pocket, create jobs, and have a great life. So this is my take on entrepreneurship. As we progress, I'll give you more examples from my personal life and things that I have heard. And at any point, if anybody has any questions, this is a very open discussion. It's a panel discussion. We didn't come with any presentations because we want to make it very interactive. And we are here just to showcase, what has worked for us, what has not worked for us. So feel free to jump in and comment or ask questions. Thank you.
Venture, the first and foremost rule is do not depend on any government help. You have to be on your own, and if your venture is going to be successful on your own, because government help is a support. You cannot make your venture based on any government policy or government help, because government policy may change tomorrow. So government help or policy should be a subsidiary thing. Main thing is your venture with your customers. Government can be one of the customers of your product, but otherwise your venture has to be independent of the government policy.
I think I can throw some light. Hello. I didn't mention the businesses I'm in. I started my business in medical transcription, and then we niched into the cardiology arena. We are the world's largest cardiology transcription company now. And then we forayed into education and training, e-platform essentially, e-learning. And what Chirag said is absolutely true. First try to see if the idea holds. Forget the funding part. If the idea holds, there are people who will use it for free, then you have something. Then you go out, and if the idea holds, if somebody is not able to understand it, it's not their cup of tea, they won't fund you, look for alternatives. There are some people who will give you money no matter what. You need to have the convincing power. So money is, and Kaushal also brought it up, people have money. They want to fund the right project. And the right projects are ROI, return on investment. Are they going to get their money back 5-10 times in a few years? So if you can prove it, they'll give you the money. Government, absolutely. I think, government has beautiful programs. You have to tap into it. You have to find the connection that this is what I'm going to do and this is the problem I'm going to solve, and here is where the government is going to be benefited by. And what is government? It's essentially how are we going to make sure that the general masses are going to be helped. One thing I know which is a semi-government, it's not government, is NSDC. which is in Delhi. They absolutely have a beautiful program to fund vocational training programs at 6% rate of interest. It's debt. It's not VC, it's not PE, but it's debt. But at 6%, that's unbelievable. That's free money. You take that money and you can do what you want. But it has to be of a certain scale. And I'm pretty sure if you contact NSDC, they will have a plethora of other, sources you can go to.
Sir, since we have Mr. Ravi Saxena here, sir, would you like to take that also? If we have a mic. Are there?
So actually, you very rightly, Chirag and Mr. Parekh, both have explained it very well. What I'd like to tell you is that government does not provide crutches to one enterprise. Government's job is to make the ecosystem for a particular segment of enterprise more competitive vis-a-vis some other country, if there is a competition with some other country, or for reasons of necessity to bring up that sector stronger in the overall economy for whatever reasons. Sometimes the reasons are like generating more employment. Sometimes the reason, you see, country has gone through phases of development or assisted development of industry. So we had SSI model, and at that point in time 5 lakh was the investment limit for small scale industry. Model was the mixed economy. Mixed economy was an ideology. It was an ideology which escaped from communism, and it also escaped from capitalism. So it was basically escaping both, not reaching anywhere. And therefore it remained a system which never found its conclusion. That was the thing, that was one where a lot of people, the idea was to develop entrepreneurs on a large scale in the country. Many people came in only to get the subsidies and not do anything about the enterprise. And it was quite some time that the country realized that providing crutches like this to individuals is not really the solution, like Chirag said. Any enterprise has to be competitive, has to generate return on investment on its own. Suppose the government withdraws its crutches, what are you going to do? The bankers will not leave you alone. So that's why you cannot develop the foundation, lay the foundation of your enterprise on the basis of subsidized assistance from another. Enterprise is Purusharth. Purusharth has to be done all by yourself.
I think sir has explained this very lucidly, and I think it is entrepreneurs who need to get out of that mindset. I think we moved as a country, the license Raj was there to benefit one or two providers, and we are still sometimes thinking, is there a policy that I can hold off? We have a great IT policy by our state, where there are incentives offered on bandwidth, incentives offered on being in a particular park or an area. Now, those were to promote, and we had literally hundreds of BPO setups that happened in the state. But it was not one company, and that was not 100% or 50% of that company's revenue or cost. It was a small portion, but it was a good incentive. So I think in that context, any other next question we can take, please? I have one question for the audience. We talked about funding, and that seems to be a lot on people's mind. So there was, and this is a story by one of our board members. So he said that there is this entrepreneur who says, I started a company and ran it for 5 years, but he failed, according to the entrepreneur, because he started expanding, and Chirag mentioned about stability and scale, and he ran out of funds. So customers started complaining, and he could not keep up, and had to shut down the venture. And the other one was Stanford MBA, superb business plan, saying, look, this is my goal, here is the ROI, here is the business plan, I want to also start a business. So here is this VC, one of my board members, who has this 5-year story of a person who has tried and failed miserably in his planning, he ran out of cash, and here is this smart young guy with a great business plan, great business school. So, if you were VCs, which one would you invest in or not invest in? first one. Anyone else? Yeah? First or second? Okay, that's good. First or second? Anyone else? Because they have to say one, you pick one company. Yes, first. Anyone else for first? Second. Second. Okay. So now we'll have both parties talk about, and then of course I'll give the answer that the VC or the board member said. But shall we start with Hardik there? If you need a mic, or Hardik, you're loud enough.
Well, I'll use the first one if I'm the VC because the guy has already gone through the rut of starting a business, getting it up. Am I audible?
Okay. If you can just make sure someone in the organizing, to make sure there is no sound here on this side.
Of starting the company, going through the initial survival period, as they mentioned, he has already gone through the sustainable period as well. So he's basically done 40% of the work. So the remaining 3 parts, the scalability, that's where he's cash strapped and that's where he needs help. The other guy, he may be a very smart guy, he may have a very good business plan, but still he has not gone through that, he has not seen that what the real world or the real business problems are. So just based on the experience of the first guy, having gone through the thing of starting up the business and making sure that his resources are working well, making sure that since he had customers as he mentioned, and now the customers are complaining, at least he knows that how to get customers. The other guy does not have any idea how to get customers. It's already just on the paper. This guy has already gone out there and got customers. So I think I would prefer the first guy because he has already got customers and he can get many more if he gets more resources on his plate.
Okay, thank you. You want to?
Maybe fresh, maybe he lacks experience, but he is full of enthusiasm and is full of optimism. The other man has become frustrated. Whatever way he had to do, he has done it and he has failed. And maybe out of his experience he may succeed. But I would like to give him a chance, the young man. That's right.
Okay, anyone else? So you had first,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
We'll take one first and one second option. So,
just see, even though he is frustrated, he's failed, still he has the tenacity to come and fight in the same battle. So, you know, that really kicks things. And maybe his failure is due to a business environment or some kind of limitation in that aspect. But still, even after failing, he wants to do it. While the other guy, he maybe is tired of his job and wants to try out something new. So he's stepping into this arena. But this guy, despite failing, he wants to do it.
okay, anyone if they have a second choice, then you can talk now. Then we'll open it up later. But anyone for option 2? You are for option 2? Go ahead.
I just want to ask one question. Why are we using the word failure? Because I think that's not an appropriate for the first one to say because...
okay, that's a good point. I have still a question for you.
Yes,
Did
please.
you pick option 1 or 2?
I pick the option 1.
Okay.
Because he's not a... I'll just give a reason why I picked the 1. Because he's not a failure. He, as a process in business or entrepreneurship, he ran out of the cash. That's happened with anybody. Because he's gone through the steps of standing up, getting up the company, getting up, going there, knowing the market values, and in this process, due to a budget lines or maybe the cost gone up for various reasons, he ran out of the money. That doesn't mean that he's a failure. It's just a roadblock for him. So I'm sure the VC will look into that. It's a roadblock for him. But the other guy is starting up. So basically, he needs some money too. So he has to figure out who's to give it. So I'm not really comfortable to hear a word called failure. I'm sorry to say that.
Sure, absolutely. So I think I'll close this by saying what this board member said, and he obviously said number 1, because the first thing he said is that at least this guy will not make the same mistakes that he made in his first venture, and every entrepreneur makes mistakes. And Chetan said we all are experienced in making mistakes. I have a mistake of the year. You hedged incorrectly with forex businesses, and I made that 3 years back. And 2 years back, we over-invested in capacity. We were under-invested earlier. So I almost feel like, wow, if you want to learn about mistakes, then come here. I'll tell you a mistake of the year, which is on a bigger scale, because you think you know how the economy is going to go and the currency is going to go. So, absolutely, there are no failures in entrepreneurship. The first guy did not fail. He learned for 5 years what not to do. And that was really the answer, but great. Shall we open it up for more questions, please? Chirag?
Yeah, I think there is also another thing, and this is more of a cultural thing. If you look at it here in India, whether you fail, whether you run out of cash, whether you stop a business, it's considered taboo. They will say, oh, this guy, started a business but didn't know how to run it, so he kind of, went bankrupt or he shut down this company. In India, it's actually looked at it as, with some negative impact. If you actually look at the US, and I'm sure this board member or this VC Kaushal is talking about is probably from the US, there I think failure, having done multiple startups, having done multiple companies and failed at one or two is actually looked at as an asset on your resume. I mean, like most VCs will value the fact that this guy knows what not to do. Obviously, there are a lot of other factors that come in. When a VC looks at a person like this, they say, okay, what's the kind of energy level he has? What's the enthusiasm he has? And very valid point, right? The Stanford guy with enthusiasm is obviously valuable. No denying that. But I think failure here, that whole connotation or this whole perception of failure here needs to definitely change, and I think it is changed. With entrepreneurship not being so prevalent a few years ago versus where it is today, in another 5 years, I don't think anybody's going to look at this as a failure, saying, hey, great, this guy started and now he's ready to go again.
Again, I would just add something on this changing of mindset. Failure, as we are calling, or learning experiences. Similar to that, just look at maybe 40 years ago. Entrepreneurship was not a word at all in any dictionary. And as a matter of fact, right here in India, which is absolutely a very socialistic society, until 91, when the major economic reforms took place, people who went after such ventures were considered as paise ke liye piche bhaga hai. They weren't looked in a very positive light. But it was only in the capitalistic societies, US, Western Europe, where capitalism and entrepreneurship was given a lot of attaboy. China changed in about 78 when they also changed their mentality, though they still think that the political system is communist. The mentality is completely capitalistic, and such is what's happening also in India. There's absolutely nothing wrong in running after money. Even if you want to run an NGO, you have to make profit. If you cannot make profit, you cannot sustain it. And that's what an entrepreneur does, which is the key point of our discussion. As an entrepreneur, I love to do the right things, absolutely. Otherwise, I wouldn't be passionate. I cannot wake up every day and keep on doing it. But if I don't have my eyes on the top line and the bottom line at the same time, I cannot sustain it. And one of the things that gets me going is creating opportunities and jobs. When I started a few years ago, it was just me, my partner, and one employee. Today we have more than 400 on 2 continents. And how are we able to do it? Because we are making money. And just like, failure is changing, even the concept of making money and making sure you're profitable has changed. I was just reading at the inscriptions besides the statue of Gandhi in this very hall. And it talked that, it was so socialistic that, money that you make is not yours, you should give it back. Yes, we should, but why not keep some for ourselves and give it back while creating employment? That is what the government's purpose is, to create very meaningful employment. And all of us feel proud that we are able to do it. And you, when you start, will be able to do that.
Thanks, Chaitanya.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Umar. I have a very basic question, like when you started very early age, all of you, what's the real spirit that's moved, let's go on? And second question, like what's the piece of advice you would like to give, take away advice to all of your young present delegates? Thank you.
I think we'll start with Chirag, and this was one of the questions on my list, so great that you asked. What was that moment, eureka moment, that you decided to start a business of your own, basically saying it's all the risk?
I started IceNet with my partner Hemal, who lives in US, and I was in my family business for around 15 years, and family businesses are always started by generations before, and you want to do something new, you want to do something else. So from electrical engineering business, I jumped on to the internet business, and me and my friend Hemal, we were traveling on a flight to Bangalore, and we read a small news article that India is opening up internet sector for private companies. And that moment we decided that we will start this venture, jump into it, and let's make a business plan. Very interesting thing. We made a business plan that on the first year we'll have 1,000 customers, on second year we'll have 2,500 customers, and on third year we'll have 5,000 customers. The internet was so hype, and we could create so big hype for our company because we were the first private internet service provider launching our services in Ahmedabad. So we had 5,000 customers in 3 weeks. The whole business plan went haywire, and the phones kept ringing, and we used to go to DOT for more telephone lines, and they didn't want to give telephone lines, and there were huge problems to be solved, and scaling up the company. But doing all these things, the joy is of creation. You create something which is not there, and then the thought of yours is carried out by all the employees of your company, that is carried out further. Your vision is taken further. That's the joy which is unparalleled. And money eventually happens, but the joy of entrepreneurship keeps you going.
So I'll tell you my story on why it happened. And I think the message here for all of the audience is that if you are hesitating on the fence, it's worth jumping in. But so we were returning from the US to India, my better half and I. We spent about 10 years there working, studying, and then we came back. And we wanted to come back to family. Both parents lived in Ahmedabad, so that's where we decided to come back. And my father also had done something similar 30 years back, went to the US, come back and started a business. So I said, I also need to start a business. And then let me tell you, honestly, in front of everyone, I still have a folder which is my resume that I sent out to all these companies in Bangalore. Because I said, look, you give up 2 incomes in the Silicon Valley and go down to 0 rupees per month. And Gujarat, no one has heard about it, and am I really mad? Should I start? Let me at least apply and see what happens. So there are companies like Pentacore, D-Square and all. They said, oh yeah, please come, we'll have a car and a house and all of that. And at one point, the secret is I actually went and interviewed and got a printout of the offer letter. And then I had to make the call that, look, this is the time. If I don't do it now, then I may get comfortable. And so the other thought I had was, what is there to lose? And that is one way we started thinking about it, and my wife is a partner in the business. Loss of life of a dear one is probably the biggest loss anyone can ever have. And we said, what do you lose in business? Worst case, some money. So what? End of the day, you can probably make it up by taking up a job somewhere. So looking at it from the other end, what else is there to lose in life? And that's how we decided to start. Chirag?
So I'll go, way back in kind of, what drove me to entrepreneurship. And, I firmly believe as a person, as a personality, I think entrepreneurs are born, not made. And I was born into a business family, right? So you grow up with the concept of, eventually you have to grow up, study, and, probably just run your father's or your grandfather's business. And no harm with that. But I was again a very stubborn and a very enterprising child to begin with. And I was always on the lookout of what else can I do, what more can I do, right? I mean, I like taking up challenges. When I took up my education in in the US, I said, most Americans spend their lifetime paying for their education. I said, though my father is willing to pay for my education, let me take this as a challenge and see if I can fund my own education. So I went abroad, accomplished whatever I put my mind to. Even in the US, I graduated with a degree. I kind of, started working with another entrepreneur there. I graduated from one of the better colleges. I had the option of working for a Fortune 500 company versus an option for working for a 7-employee company. Right? I took up the 7-employee offer, and my boss asked me, he says, why do you want to work here? When you can go and work as a financial analyst somewhere and whatnot. I said, see, there I'll be focused on doing one thing really well. Here I'll be focused on doing 10 things, maybe not as well, but at least I'll get my hands dirty. And it was a services firm, an IBM business partner. And if I actually relate to what I learned there versus what I do today in terms of how I handle business, how I handle customers, how I do project management, how I work with a services firm versus my family business was in manufacturing. So in some of these things, I don't mean to say that I had all this figured out when I was 21 years old. No, but these are things that I think every decision you take in life is based on how you think about what you're comfortable doing and where you think the value is. And so having come back from the US, working for my family business, which was actually in edible oils and cotton ginning and pressing. Nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with IT or knowledge-based industry. But I was like a geek since probably 15 years old. And so I knew that if whatever I had to do in business to be happy, it had to be something in technology. And so about 1995, the internet revolution started. And needless to say, that's where a lot of opportunities started springing up, and I started looking at one opportunity after the other. So I decided that I have to kind of do something and make the most of this particular stage of the internet ecosystem. And I researched almost 3 different business ideas. Research as in not only just said whether this idea works or not. I worked with people, I investigated the market, I looked at how the numbers are working. At some point in time I would have competed with Chirag Mehta. One of my initial ideas was to actually do an internet startup that gave internet for free. Right? Everything on the internet was free but the internet. So there's a company in the US which got bond off called Net Zero, and in India there was a company called CalTiger. So I in fact looked at those ideas too, and in 1999 I came up with the idea of Net for Nuts, and I felt really strong about it, saying this is where I think I want to jump ship. And the idea about Net for Nuts also came from my entire environment of operating. Right? I used to work for my family business. The factory was in Himatnagar, office was in Ahmedabad, and residence was at home. I had internet connectivity and technology deployed at all these 3 places. But none of these technologies work with each other. An email I sent from the factory wasn't accessible, you're talking 1999. Wasn't accessible at home. I downloaded something at home and I wouldn't get it at the factory the next day. A lot of issues. And so the whole idea behind Net for Nuts was to actually take your online life and take it with you wherever you go. And today, that one idea, even though my company's entire technology and the back end, the platform has changed, that one idea still sustains in our company today. Right, today we work on the mobile platform, and the idea is you get your information, your world, irrespective of where you are. So I think the Eureka moment was practically in saying this is the problem, it is something that affects me. If it affects me, I'm sure there are enough other people who would probably want a solution to this problem, and that's what got me going.
Thanks. I think Chetan, we know your Eureka moment, you hated your boss. So that's more questions from the audience, please. Yes, please.
US and India. In the US there is a social security. In India there is no social security. So if you do business and you are gone wrong, you are on the roads. Can you explain something on this entrepreneurship?
So social security for a typical person in the US after 25 years of working is somewhere in the $600 to $800 range. If you're lucky, it's $1,200. And today, at least from what I know, in places like California and all, you can't even afford a 1-bedroom apartment rental in that amount. So it's like the pension, right? If we say, if I with this pension, I'll be more than happy to live my life. It's similar to Social Security. And I think the time is right now, because it is okay to start a venture if you have an idea, one life we talked about, live it, And worst case, there are so many job opportunities. As Chirag said, you can't find enough people. So if at all the time it is right now, because if the business doesn't work, you always get a job to work. My dad joked about it, धंधा चालू कर ले, if it doesn't work, you take up a job, and if that doesn't work, start an NGO where you only give. वो तो चलेगा ही. So I think I don't need to worry about retirement. Culturally, all of us live 3 generations simultaneously: our parents, ours, and our children. And then while we actually live, there is this cartoon where an American walks like this, an Indian walks like this with 3 generations on his back. So we don't need to worry so much about retirement, and kind of live that experience and go for it.
And who says there is no risk in being employed, right? I mean, people get laid off. So I mean, the entrepreneurs are born to take the risk. I think if at all, that's one thing that drives an entrepreneur. And because it's risky, and nobody else wants to do it, that's why I'm going to do it. And that's one of the big challenges. And I don't think whether you're employed or whether you have your own business, retirement problem is solved. And that's something you have to provide for yourself either way. Chetan, you want to add something?
Yeah, about retirement. I was just reading an article on Arvind Eye, Dr. Venkateswaran. He started his business, Arvind Eye, when he was 58. He had retired from the government, and that is when he started his Arvind Eye with 11 beds. So we are talking about a guy who is retired. He had nothing to lose or nothing to gain, but nonetheless he did it. And today Arvind Eye is the largest eye hospital on the globe. So don't worry about your age or anything. Age has nothing to do with it.
I'm not talking about retirement. I'm talking about you take loans from banks and all these things.
Okay, Social Security. Let me tell you, Social Security in US will go bust. By the time we reach 50 or 60, it will go bust. Because they are so much in debt, okay, they will have to take that money and divert it to pay away all their deficits. So, I do have a substantial amount of money in my Social Security in US. I lived there for 18 years. But I don't expect a single penny to come from that.
Okay, since there are a lot of young people, I want to bounce.
Just a sec. Let me introduce to our new entry, Gokul Jaikrishna. He is the managing director and the CFO for Asai Songwon, and unfortunately he had some other prior commitments. But I'm glad, Gokul, thank you for coming. And if you can take 2 minutes after Chirag just to introduce yourself and your thoughts on entrepreneurship, please.
Since there are a lot of young people, I want to bounce an idea. See, in old days, where people used to have an S curve in life. Now, what is this S curve? So, S is the curve. On x-axis, there are years of life, and on y-axis, it is the success of life. And you have an S curve. So when you are on the bottom part of the S, like for the first 10-15 years of your career, where you invest your years, you invest your experience in your career, but the success is not much because you learn and you do a lot of things. Then comes the golden period of your life, that's the vertical part of the S, where you do work little and you get a lot of success because you have worked in a field and you go excel and you have a lot of experience and all. Then comes the plateau, where again you are stagnant. So this is the S curve of life for an old man. Okay. So what I'm talking about now is in the new knowledge economy, this whole S curve concept has changed, and this one S is being replaced by 2S, replaced by 3S. So the first S curve gets completed in first 10 years of your life. 2-3 years of learning, glory, and end. The field in which you are working, maybe BPO, but the whole field gets burst. So the key to the 21st century is learn, unlearn, and relearn. From the BPO, you go and learn energy sector. Again, there is a small S curve, 5-6 years. Learn, glory, done. So the youth has to think about this. If you are not happy with your one S curve of life, the S is going to change. It's not like your bank manager father, clerk to manager to deputy manager, general manager. No, it's not going to be for all these young people. It's going to be multiple S curves of your life, and you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn at the end of every S curve. Thank you.
First, let me apologize for being a little late. Gokul Jaikrishna, I am MD, as Chirag said, and CFO of Asai Songwon Colors. We are a manufacturing company. We manufacture colorants, basically pigments which go into giving color to inks, paints, and plastics. Pretty much everything that you see around you, any color that you see, needs some pigment, except textiles which require dyes. I won't waste much of your time with my introduction, so I'll let you continue with the discussion.
So I think, thanks and thanks for joining. Why don't we continue with the questions, and then if you have any specific panelists that you want to address the question or general, go ahead.
It is general question. Are you lucky? Luck plays part?
Sorry?
Does luck play a part?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So who wants to take that?
Let me take this. I have a one-line answer to this. See, entrepreneurship, there is a book, I think you should read it. It's a very short, I think 60-70 page book called Lucky or Smart. And this is about an internet entrepreneur. And I think the one-line summary is that entrepreneurs, they have to be smart enough to know when they are getting lucky.
We had a Thai summit in Bombay, and on the stage there was Ratan Tata here and Narayan Murthy here, and there was a panel. There was a guy who was questioning to the both of them, and he said that which is the one very important thing you mentioned about your, about success of yours in your enterprise. And one guy was to answer, instead both of them answered at the same time, luck.
Gokul?
You see, luck it's a very good question. Luck is always a very big part of many things that everyone does. But the way an entrepreneur should actually view luck is not think about it at all. You go ahead and it's part of the equation which you don't look at because it's not part of what you can control. So you do what best you can to the controllable factors in your hands, and then luck will eventually come your way. Because if you give it a shot after shot, there's a very very strong belief that I have that if you believe something, if you can imagine an idea in today's day and age and believe in it, and if you go after it hard, you will achieve it. Now that's when luck comes in the way. That when do you need to get lucky to do that? Well, maybe first time you don't, second time you don't, but if you give it a hard shot the third or fourth time, you will eventually get lucky. So when opportunities come your way, you take the opportunities at the right time is more important than thinking about luck.
So they say the harder you work, the luckier you get. So I was reading a book which said luck is also when you are born. And then they said, do you know the year 1955 what happened? Bill Gates, Bill Joy, the founder of Sun, and Steve Jobs, all three were born in the same year. Well, when they became 20 or 22, that is when the PC revolution just happened and the chips were being introduced, and so they say, well, if you really look at it, they were at the right time, they were born on the right year, and then when it took off, but then there were probably several hundred million people that were born also in that year. So, next question please. Yes please.
I'm Sneha Suman from the student of CBI College. I have one question, a small question as a student. What is the major difference between the government company and the private company, and why it is between them? Why this difference is between them?
Okay, so the question is, what is the difference between a government company and a private company? Anyone else wants to take it on? Gokul, go ahead please.
Yeah. Basically all over the world, you have government-run enterprises and private enterprises. The capitalist world, where you talk about the Western countries, they have more private enterprises. In India, before Manmohan Singh started the opening up of the economy, so to say, in 1992, Before that, we had many many public enterprises. Now, public enterprises or companies are the ones which the government owns and runs, and the private ones are owned and run by individuals. So that is the primary fundamental difference. But I think your question, if you want to take it up a little deeper, what is the difference between them in terms of efficiency? Private enterprises have a lot more in terms of their own stake in the company. So a lot more desire to succeed goes behind it. While a public enterprise is run by the government, so there is no real owner, because the government is nothing other than public's money. So what the government does is start a public enterprise with public money. So when you're doing it with public money and you're not the owner of it, the return is not going to go into your pocket, the incentive is that much less. Then, of course, there is a lot of bureaucracy that goes in, decision making is slow, and many factors, many times the government enterprises or companies don't have profit as the sole objective. A private company, apart from other social objectives of employment and other things, social objectives, they will definitely have profit as a fundamental objective. So they perform much better, and they want to be more efficient, they want to be more quality conscious, and they want to grow faster.
As per the job security, some say that government has a job security and private company has no job security. What is that?
Yeah, because the government won't fire people when they don't need it. A private company, if in my company, if there is 10 employees in a department, and eventually after 3 years, if I realize that they don't have enough work, or I can reduce the number of people or increase the quality of the people and make it 7, then eventually I'll probably let 3 go. So from that point of view, you're right. The government companies will have more job security, and that's a negative thing for performance, because there should not be anything like job security. If I'm working for a company, I should be efficient enough for the company to want me, rather than me to want to stick around. So there should be more demand for my work. So yeah, you're right. There is much more security as a job security in a government company, because they won't normally fire people.
The model was that the commanding heights of the economy should be in the hands of government, because they alone can afford to set up large enterprises. So what you had Steel Authority of India, you had steel plants, you had Hindustan Aeronautics, you had Oil and Natural Gas Commission, you had electricity generation. All these fundamental but highly capital intensive and embedded in an economy where the return was not going to be as lucrative as to lure in major capital from private sector, and this was the Nehru's vision, and this was relevant at that time, and I think it was correct at that time, that such a massive base of industrial activity was established in the country. This model, and along with that, they also established institutions like IITs, IIMs, that was still development. So there was an overall perspective about how to take this country, which had actually very little. There were textile units in the private sector. There were some other enterprises in Calcutta, in Mumbai, in Chennai, but we still had to go a long way before this muscle in the private sector developed. And rightly, as time passed, we came to a level where it was necessary to come out of that model, where the government had to develop the fundamental pillars of the economy, and in 1991 began the course of reforms. As you know, the government started coming out of this. Government started disinvesting. Otherwise, until 1991, we still run airlines. There is no reason why government should run airlines. So government got into some of the commercial sectors also, which was not really necessary, even at that time. But perhaps in the process of the overall decision making in the government, some fond ideas crept in, and we started running hotels like Ashoka, started running private airlines, we started running some of these things which we still doing, and they don't have a heart to come out of it, because it basically provides to the government certain basic infrastructure. So this is how it has happened. Question of whether government companies have no sense of ownership, or private companies have greater sense of profit which drives efficiencies is debatable. There are examples on both these sides. As a matter of fact, I can say that there are private companies where efficiency is not really the objective. There are many other objectives, but we don't want to get into that. And there are government companies where there is excellent sense of ownership, good profit motive, which drives the entire energy in that company. So I just thought that I would put that perspective, that I would just clarify that. Ultimately, it's individuals who run these organizations. It's the organization which is important, it's the leadership of the organization which is important, whether it's in the government, it's in the corporate, and it's the objectives. Ultimately, I think the vision and goals, which if they are set right, whether it's in the government or in the corporate private sector, it would drive the organization to achieve results which would make everybody happy.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, as a student, I just wanted to comment something. You said you are a student of some college, correct? I think, look at yourself not as a job seeker, but a job creator. Take that plunge. You have nothing to lose right now. Job security by itself is senseless work. If you work for somebody, then you're a nincompoop boss who is going to decide your future, which I had experienced. Means the boss may not be capable of understanding your capability. So create your own job. Go out and live your life. That's the message I want to send out. And it should be loud and clear to all students at this point of time.
Yes.
I have one question. Usually entrepreneurs are driven by passion. And so when you start a company, let's say you employ people, and you really try to communicate that passion to those people who you employ. And it's usually a small group of people trying to do multitasking. So my question is, how do you transfer that passion to those people so that the company prospers and does that? You obviously are doing a lot of strategy and multitasking at the low level. But the transfer of passion to the new people you employ, to the team, how do you do that so that the momentum continues and doesn't die out? Or probably you would get new ideas to start up.
I'll start off and then have anyone else who wants to take off. But I think in setting up organizations, Sir talked about goals and vision. And one additional thing there is core values. That, however large the organization is, that some point start with the entrepreneur's personal beliefs on what they stand for. That this is how I am going to approach my business. Here are 2 or 3 things, values that I am going to care about. That defines the framework of how an organization is built. And as you grow, you will have more people coming in, and there are no rule books. You can say, look, you have to come at 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock go, but so what? So the core values glue an organization together, and then there are companies which are in multiple countries. So then how do you understand how you behave in a particular situation? So I think as an entrepreneurial, you have to do a very serious introspection and say, these are my core values, and this is what I stand for. And that's something which you have to then promote. I'll give you an example just so that this theory becomes more practical. We have the values of 3 I's at Motive. The first I is integrity, and integrity means we will always do the right thing. Now this is a very standard cliched statement, but when you have 800 people and 1500 people in multiple locations, every minute of reporting time to the client has value. If you are off by half a minute in 1500 people, you have either overbilled your client or underbilled your client. And sometimes nobody has time to check all the logs. So that's a rule book that this is how you will do your business, which means that that's something which is cast in concrete. And anytime there is an example, we actually had an employee one day who said, look, I have an idea to increase revenue for Motive. And he said, sure, tell us. He said, I'll go and keep sending emails. And Motive will reply, so we'll get money. Now, if he said, we will only do the right thing, that employee was let go. So you have to stand by that we will not do anything wrong at any given time. The other is intensity or passion, which means going above and beyond. So it's not 8 to 5 job. And the third was intellect, which means challenge the status quo. So at any given time, debate, discuss, argue, challenge anything against anybody, as long as it's not personal. So I subject myself to an open alias, and people can say, Kaushal, you are wrong, I disagree. That is encouraged, and send a praise email is sent out. So but that email is seen across 3 continents or 4 continents. So people know this is the culture of the company, so they know how to really behave in spite of the different customers and all, and something which gels it together. So that's at least my response of how you grow an organization, keeping something intact.
I think culture is very important, but also the other important aspect to this is the people you hire in your team. And depending on the stage of the company, at least this is my experience, that there is a different pool of talent which is ready to come and work with an environment which is far riskier than going to a bigger corporate. Right? A guy who is extremely successful, let's say at an Oberoi or a Tata hotel, may not be probably the right talent you want when you're starting off a company which is 15 or 30 people. So I think one, it's very important to gauge the risk appetite of the people that you are hiring, especially in your core team. Right? And I think because unless they share that core values in terms of I associate my work environment with the risk environment. I am okay with that. It's not about money. And then there are people who will work for bigger companies where the focus is I need a certain infrastructure. I need someone to kind of do my mailing and do my phone calling, and I need someone to kind of create appointments for me so I can just go and meet the customer. Versus a guy in that position who comes for a startup, says, okay, I am going to do all of this myself, and I am going to make cold calls and make the interview and make the appointment and meet the customer. So there is a different level of commitment that's required when you are a small company, when you are a growing company. And I can't understress the importance of culture. Very important. I couldn't agree with Kaushal more, because it's the entrepreneur. See, your passion and your culture and your values define the organization. And unless you are able to translate that to your core team, and the core team then translate it to the people they are accountable for, you can only go so far. And this culture, there is no proven formula how to do it. But I think the more you are conscious about it, the more you want to make sure that what you feel, the third level down your organization should also feel is very important. And last but not the least, one of the other points that I'd like to share in this discussion is that just like as an entrepreneur, your take home is defined by the pleasure to go and say I closed my first deal, or I was able to achieve this milestone. The same feeling, the same accomplishment needs to be felt by the people who you want to translate your passion to. So you need to give them the room to grow, you need to give them the room to experiment, you need to give them the room to fail. So I think those, unless you give them that room, you can't translate your passion by saying, this is how I want it done, go ahead and do this. If you fail, it's my responsibility. If you succeed, it's my responsibility. You need to transfer that ownership, decision making also to the team members.
Yeah, I think for me it has always been very, very open communication to the team. We transfer, and as Chirag and Kaushal both said, for your team, they should be you. It's just an alter ego. We are all close at a certain point of time. Tell them everything. Make it known what's going on with the customer, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. And keep on telling them. I think it's repetition that this is what I am about, this is what our company is about. Show them a dream that they want to live up to. That is what brings passion in people.
Any last questions before we wrap up the session? Yes, please.
So entrepreneurship is all about taking risks, saying that this is just one life we've got. Now we come from a culture that says this is not the only life we've got. Does this exposure to outside culture play a big role in forging successful entrepreneurs? Does this enhance your risk-taking capabilities? How does an Indian reconcile these two seemingly conflicting ideas?
I think I have only one line. If you look at now the world's wealthiest people and successful entrepreneurs, I think Indians figure a lot in that list. And they all seem to be thinking of multiple lives, but there is no such thing as being worried about that.
No, but does exposure to outside countries means enhance your entrepreneurial abilities? That is the key point. Means all of you would have had some exposure outside of India. So does that help, and is it an important criterion for success?
I think exposure overall helps. You know, in GE I learned a beautiful model. Success is equal to PIE, pi. Success is the pi model. P is performance, I is image, E is exposure. And in GE they really did a survey of about 10,000 employees who were very successful in top-notch positions. They found that performance, how we perform, is only 10% of success. So it only contributed 10% to your success. Image contributed 35%. That's what people thought about you. Are you a winner? Are you a go-getter? Will you get the things done? And exposure on different types of projects, different environments, different cultures was 55% to your success. So yes, do get exposed, you know, wherever you can, not only in India, but if you are going to go in a social, then go to villages, figure out what you can do over there. Now about karma, you know, even in the next life, buddy, we'll take our karma with us. So let's take some good karma with us by providing a lot of employment to people this life. Any other questions? Okay,
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up. Gokul, do you have any final comments?
Well, I'll probably leave you guys with a general thought that, you know, we've covered a lot of issues from how to perform or get your people to perform. The panelists have given a lot of ideas. But one thing, you know, I would probably like to leave you with, there are absolutely no rules. There is absolutely no rules basically it's entrepreneurship eventually to lead people and to motivate them is all about leadership. So, and you can be a leader in many different ways. It's, you know, I could be a different leader, he could be a different leader, and we can still all, you know, in different ways be successful. So it is what works for you. It is your own ideas, you take them forward, and how you know, go about doing it, it's your own thing, you make it your own way. And you should have confidence in doing that. Once you have the confidence, there is absolutely no rules, you could do it in various ways. But one small thing, if you can get people who are to work for you, and this I'm saying from my personal experience, who are smarter than you, that is one of the easiest ways. I try and get people to work for me who are smarter than me. So like I have a chemical business and I don't understand chemistry. And I'm running it for more than 10 years. So it's possible.
Very nice. Chirag, any final thoughts? So Gokul said, find people which are smarter than you. I have to admit it's very easy for me to do that. And last but not the least, one line closing comment. It's a terrific high. Entrepreneurship is a journey, and I think it's worth risking to get that high.
Well, again, thank you very much. And if there's anything we can do for you, we'll be available after the talk. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Saxena sir, for being with us.